Hey guys, this is Jay Calderon with Jay Unboxing here reacting to the massive card of Josh Warrington versus Mauricio Lara, which was an incredible show in some good and some not so good ways, and we will be getting to that here. In the opening bout of the televised card, you saw Hopi Price win a clear decision over journeyman Daniel Mendoza. He was a replacement, so, he had some experience, some stuff he could offer in that respect, but for the most part, the rangy speedster used just quick counter shots and movements to frustrate Mendoza and win comfortably. The concern with him that I have is potentially power, especially as he moves up to 126 or 130, because even at 122 pounds, he just has a you just get the sense that he doesn't carry power very well. He has maybe some of that kind of what I call like those amateur power shots where they're obviously not jabs, but they're not necessarily punching through the target. It's more of a scoring shot. And he'll have to hopefully learn to step into that power a little bit more as he progresses. But skill-wise, he seems to have quite a bit of tools in the box. The next fight on the card there was Dalton Smith, and he made easy work of Ishmael Ellis. He forced the corner to stop the fight after 3 rounds, which kind of lets you know just how much he had in regards to just having levels over his opponent. I think it was a really good stoppage, too. It was one of the highlights of the card, in a sense, in that Ellis's corner didn't take too much pride in the fact that their man was just outgunned and they needed to protect him. That's what needed to happen there, and that's what they did. Lee Wood then methodically stopped Reese Mold in the ninth frame of an explosive performance. He captured the British Featherweight title. It was a solid win, obviously, for Wood, and, this was his second go around going for that portion of the title in Britain, so it was nice to see him pick up that win there. But I always do say that when you have fighters from Britain that put so much emphasis on British and European honors like that, I always wonder if it sets up like a false ceiling where that becomes sort of too much of an emphasis on the goal as opposed to world titles, because you notice that doesn't really happen in the United States, for example, where these regional titles are kind of looked at as marquee matchups, where they sort of are in Britain a little bit more. And while it's a good thing, I suppose, in the sense that it helps build stars sometimes, or at least builds up kind of those domestic dust-ups, I do wonder sometimes if it does set that false ceiling of fighters not wanting to, or maybe not just naturally aspiring for more. And it's just one of those interesting things. What do you guys think about that in the comments? Go ahead and let me know. But I've always kind of wondered about that myself. In the robbery of the night, junior lightweight Zelda Barrett just needed to stay on his feet to be awarded a wide unanimous decision over veteran Kiko Martinez. Scores were 118, 111 twice, and 116, 113. And these were in favor of Zelda Barrett. And it made zero sense. He probably lost the fight. Certainly, you could, at best, I say, maybe say that he won a very, very, very close decision. Probably a draw at the most if you were trying to spare him the loss. But he certainly didn't win it that wide. I mean, when your own promoter rather comes out in Eddie Hearn and says this is a travesty, when the broadcast team that typically favors British fighters is saying that the other guy probably should have won, it's probably not a great sign for you in terms of how well you performed in that fight. And whether or not he should have won is kind of inconsequential. I saw some very small group of people saying that, hey, it wasn't exactly a robbery because I did actually think Barrett should have won, but it was a little bit closer. That doesn't matter. At the end of the day, a robbery is not just whether or not you took it from the fighter who should have won, it's whether or not you even gave him a real chance to win because the fix was already in from the beginning. That's the issue here. If you don't give him You can rob a fight or a result from somebody. You can also rob a fair shake from somebody. And that happened here in this case for sure. He probably got robbed twice in that respect. And in the main event, my God, Mauricio Lara pulls off the upset of the year thus far and soundly defeats previously unbeaten former world champion Josh Warrington. Just an amazing, unbelievable result. I mean, you would not have expected it. Phenomenal work. I mean, it was one of those fights where it was really interesting because Warrington's a guy who seems to, feed off the crowd. He loved being the champion. He was having some great performances. In terms of beating Lee Selby and then ultimately Carl Frampton. I mean, he seemed to catch them almost at the right time and looked phenomenal against them. But then he runs into Kid Galahad puts in a subpar performance, and then ultimately now runs into Mauricio Lara and gets knocked out in the 9th round of a fight that, even if he hadn't been knocked out, was probably, in my opinion, on his way to losing or winning, depending on what judges would have been scoring that fight. So it was just one of those things where the fear I always had for Warrington kind of came true. And I'm, by the way, in no way trying to say that I called this result, but I always feared that a guy who's as active as he is, who likes to fight as much as he does on the inside, was always going to be a potential problem for him if he faced someone who could take his punches, because Warrington is not a big puncher, and had some power, because Warrington is there to sometimes be hit, especially fighters that are a little more awkward, or maybe like a Gary Russell who has a little more hand speed. That was always kind of my concern for his success in those moments. And he, again, doesn't have the sort of power that can bail him out if he does get hurt. And while he has some decent boxing skills, when he is hurt, I think his instinct is to continue to fight. I mean, he walked himself into that knockout in the 9th frame. So it was just one of those things where it almost seemed weirdly inevitable in some way, but it kind of always did. He just happened to, I don't know, he happened to, string together some really good wins, and then this just kind of struck out of nowhere, it feels like, but it does sort of, it feels like we should have seen it coming to some degree. I just don't think any of us really would have picked Laura to be the man to execute this upset, so to speak. But in any event, that's what happened. I mean, it's a phenomenal thing. It's one of my favorite things in the sport, because, I mean, really, at the end of the day, it was a great fight. It really, in many respects, in terms of the right guy winning, getting the right result, and actually being a competitive fight, it probably was the fight of the night, which is what you're always kind of hoping your main event is to begin with. So, yeah, just an amazing fight, an amazing result, and yeah, I mean, Lara's guaranteed himself at least one more payday in his future, so that's impressive. And I gotta say too, the thing I thought about right as he was getting flattened in that 9th round was, what does he feel like about having pressed for a fight that's non-title and having vacated his title? Uh, I just wonder if he has any regrets under the circumstances. Again, how could he have predicted something like this? How could any of us? But yeah, there's just so many variables in this situation. It's a very interesting situation. In any event, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Did any of you actually pick Lara? Did you guys just put some money on him for funsies? Any crazy wins or bets out there? Let me know. Please, of course, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB. For any questions or any lengthier responses, you can also hit me up on my email, or at my email rather, jonboxing@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you, and until next time.